that it's not that different from journalism. I still get to meet strangers, talk to them, hear their stories, and talk about their stories to other people. It's a lot like being a news reporter. So let me report some news this morning. First of all, let's do a survey. How many people in this room are independently wealthy CEOs of Fortune 500 companies? Anybody? No. How many people here think that Congress is doing a great job of representing us? Well, this room is just like all of the other rooms I've been in and all of the other individuals I've talked to over the last 9 months. I find that the voters in this district are not the wealthiest Americans and are not satisfied with the job that those who are supposed to be representing us are doing in Washington. By contrast, how many people in this room believe that we can do better? I don't meet a lot of pessimists in this process either. Almost everybody thinks we can do better. There's a book I'd like to recommend since we are in a library. It is available at this library. You don't have to spend a nickel to read it. It's called That Used to Be Us. It was co-authored by Thomas Friedman and Michael Mandelbaum. And it's not a woe is us, how terrible our lives have become. It's a very optimistic, forward-looking book about how we got to be such a great country and what we can do to regain a lot of that greatness in the world. And it focuses on what other countries in the world, countries like India and China, for example, are doing to compete against us by imitating the same things that we have done historically. Investing in infrastructure, investing in education, raising standards, engaging vigorously in trade around the world, not wasting money on things like unnecessary military adventures. These are things that we used to be all about. And I believe that these are the same principles that will lead us out of the mess that we're in today. Now, a lot of people want to hear me say terrible things about my opponent. I'm tired of talking about my opponent. I want to talk about the rest of us, because the rest of us have a stake in this. As I said, I'm a journalist. My job is to tell other people's stories. So let me tell you a couple of stories. A woman walked into my campaign office about a week ago, actually almost 2 weeks ago, and she said, I don't like Barack Obama, I don't like that high-speed rail thing, I'm against the health care reform, and I don't like your opponent, here's some money, I want to support your campaign. Well, it was a little unusual because she and I disagreed about something. But I did not do this to get everybody to agree with my views on the world or on politics. I think the job of a journalist and the job of a representative is to reflect the views of everybody, not just those few who might agree with me, who might give money to my campaign. That's not what this is supposed to be about. A democracy is supposed to be a collection of everybody's best ideas, working together to solve our common problems. Now, I agree that government is not the end-all and be-all of our society. There are plenty of things that government has no business getting involved in. I don't think government should be involved in our personal and private lives. I don't think government ought to be telling us who we can marry. I don't think government ought to be telling us what we do in our bedrooms. I don't think government ought to be telling us how we want to dress, or where we want to travel, or how we want to spend our money, how we want to earn our money, what we want to put into our bodies, what we want to take out of our bodies. None of that is government's business. Our religion is none of government's business. But where we have conflict with each other, that's an area where government can help us solve our conflicts. Where we have common obstacles to overcome. Those are things that we can do together. Because after all, that's what government is. It's us working together to solve our common problems. Now, there are areas where we want to keep government at bay. Being Americans, where this country began by dumping a lot of tea into Boston Harbor, the Tea Party, it really is a part of our national culture. And the Tea Party, as you all remember from school, was a protest against high taxes, taxes without representation. None of us wants to pay more in taxes than we have to. We certainly don't want to have to pay taxes unless we have a voice in how those taxes are paid and how much we pay. That's why we have representatives to help us deal with these problems. But it doesn't mean that just because we have government collecting taxes, that government is inherently evil. It's not. Government is one of the most high aspirations we can all have in order to work together to solve our common problems. I have, in addition to experience in journalism, I have special training in conflict resolution. And I believe that there's no problem that we cannot find a solution to if we agree to solve our problems together. You can put it on a matchbook cover, the solution to conflict. Solving conflict requires that we focus on interests and not on positions. I'm going to say that one more time. Solving conflict requires that we focus on interests and not positions. Let's say one of us wants that door open and another of us wants that door closed. Well, it's either open or closed, right? But why do we want the door open or closed? Let's say it's too hot in here, or let's say it's too noisy out there. We can debate and discuss the issues and find ways of accommodating each other's needs. We have common interests. I don't care whether you all are Democrats or Republicans, or if you're like me, not a member of the party. None of that matters to me. What I care about is that we work together. What I care about is that we stop the corruption that we have institutionalized in our country. It should not cost $1 million to run for public office in this country. That's obscene. Any of us should be able to do this. And part of the process that I find the most difficult is walking up to strangers and saying, put some money into my campaign kitty so I can keep doing this. I really don't like that. But I am going to ask you all to do that, because that's the way I get to tell my story to more than just rooms like this. This is a great way to do it. Going door to door is a great way to do it. Before November 6th, I'm going to have to buy some media. That's important too. It's a big district. It covers Tulare County, most of Kern County, and a little bit of northern LA County. So I'm going to be wearing out a lot of shoe leather before I'm done. I've been learning a lot from my two colleagues. Both John and Rudy have taught me a lot about how to run for office. And I'm glad I'm not running against them. And I'm also not here, as I said at the beginning, to say bad things about my opponent. Kevin McCarthy is probably an honorable man, wife and kids. He's been in this district forever. He comes from a long line of McCarthys in this district. But we have some fundamental disagreements about the way we ought to be representing this district. And he calls himself a conservative. A lot of people say to me, be careful because those conservatives won't like you. I think that's nonsense. I don't consider myself conservative or liberal. I'm an American. I'm conservative on some things, progressive on other things, neutral on some things because I'm still learning. But I do think the word conservative is important because a lot of people here say, I'm conservative. Well, what does that mean? I'm a journalist. Words matter to me. And I think the word conservative, if you look at its roots, conserve, save, is important. We all should care about preserving our environment, preserving our children's future. I think Mr. McCarthy wants to save too. He just wants mostly to save for himself and his rich friends. I don't think that's what it should be about. That's not conservative. That's hoarding. That's greedy. I think we need to be generous. We need to help each other. That's one of the things I love about this place. I was born in Fresno. I've only been living in Bakersfield for 8 years. But the Central Valley is a very generous place. People do care about each other. They look out for each other. And I think that's the way we need to govern ourselves. It's not me. It's not just us. It's all of us. So I appreciate your help. I appreciate you listening to me. I'm very anxious to hear what you think. If you have questions, I'd like to do my best to answer.
The persons that are going to ask a question, can you say who you are, who you represent an organization, or a little bit about who you are, so that people know when we do stack questions from the person campaign.
By the way, I used to be a radio talk show host, so the lines are open. Do we have a caller? No, we should. Caller on line 1.
First time caller. Ollie Morris, Kern Black Chamber. There's a fundamental question that I've been asking around and really haven't gotten an answer that I'm sure is satisfactory. When candidates run, any candidate, I want to get your viewpoint on the position. When candidates run and they're elected, is it your opinion that they are elected because we like their thoughts and ideas, we want them to represent their thoughts and ideas, or that they're elected to come get the thoughts and ideas of the people they represent and understand that and take that back to their position? So is it your thoughts that should be put out and your mindset is that, well, we like you so much, we put you in, go at it, or you should be back here getting our stuff and thinking about presenting it?
And of course, the answer is yes. And the answer is yes, because different people vote for different reasons. Some people, I won't identify the candidate because it's not fair, but I was listening to a radio interview the other day, and somebody was being interviewed and asked for their opinion about a particular candidate, and the interviewee said, well, I agree with the candidate on this, this, and this. And the reporter said, yeah, but those things aren't true. And the interviewee said, it doesn't matter what's true or what's not true, I trust this person. Well, that's fine, and I think any decision, any valid basis for any decision is okay. Being a journalist, I'm kind of annoyed by this commitment to facts, and I believe that facts are a more important reason for choosing a candidate. But I will be the first to tell you, if you haven't heard it from anybody else yet, that I'm not an expert in economics, in international conflict. I've been a war reporter and I've studied math, but I think that we need to do the best job we can, those of us who are elected, to get the most facts, the best information we can, get the opinions of those we represent, and make decisions that represent everybody's best interests.
Kerry, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm Marvin, representing the Kern Contractors Association. Let me ask you this question. It takes money to run for office. You're going to have people that's going to support your campaign from the standpoint of financing that campaign. And then you may have a situation of people that you represent, your constituency, where then when it comes time to make a decision governing, you may be in a position that, is that decision going to best influence the money that's financing your campaign, or is it going to be the constituency that you represent? Because I say this, and I'm not, again, I'm a friend of Kevin, I'm going to say that I'm a friend, I like him. But I think that some of the decisions that are taking place in Sacramento, Washington, and Washington is not serving the best interest of the constituency. It's more so through the political process of the machine or the post or the hierarchy. So you may come in a situation at times where you may have a conflict. Because it takes money to stay there. But then you have the constituency. So how do you rationalize that when you come to that difference?
First, I'm very proud of the fact that Kevin McCarthy has spent more money on steak dinners in 1 quarter of last year than I raised last year. This is not money versus money. If that were the case, I wouldn't be standing up here. I'd be out there looking at books. But I don't believe you need $1 million to run for public office. I don't think it should be necessary, and I'm not planning to raise $1 million to do this. I do recognize that I need certain funds to operate a campaign, to have an office, buy ads and so forth. But I also know that I have not been getting big checks from people outside the district. I've raised some money inside the district, some money outside the district. It's all been from individuals, not big PAC money, not big corporate money, none of that stuff. So I don't have to worry about displeasing somebody who's going to be able to prevent me from running again, as I've been running this time. I don't have that problem. I'm lucky. But I think that it's important for all people who run for public office to be able to say, when a donor offers money and says, by the way, here's what I'm going to want. It's not always that obvious. Sometimes they're implied desires. If somebody wants something from me in exchange for their donation, I feel my obligation first is to say thanks but no thanks. And I've only had one opportunity to turn down money so far, but that was the reason. And again, I want to identify the person. It's not fair. But someone wanted me to take a campaign contribution in exchange for hiring someone. I said no. And I'm not going to vote because someone gave me a donation. I'm not going to do anything one way or the other than what I would already do, which is serve as well as I can, answer phone calls from everybody if I'm in office, meet with people if they want to meet with me here, and do my job. Beyond that, I think it's bribery. But
I have sort of 2 questions. As you know, we have the patient protection. Craig Kerner, and I know it's the great debate. I have my own insurance agency, a radio show, and other businesses. But as you know, we have the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, and Congress has a waiver there that they don't have to participate in that. Number 1, what's your thought on that? And number two, legislators in the United States government, after they serve 2 terms or 6 years in the Senate, will get a full pension, 100% of their pay for the rest of their life. What's your thought on that?
I don't believe that any member of government ought to have any special privileges or benefits that aren't available to everybody. Now, I understand that not everybody gets paid what a congressman gets paid, not everybody gets paid what a president gets paid, not everybody has Secret Service protection. I understand those things. But I think when it comes to health care in particular, that members of government ought to get the same health care that the least among us get. If they're okay with that, then I'm fine. I don't have a problem. If they're not okay with that, then let's find a way for the rest of us to have the same health care benefits and other benefits that they have. This is not a monarchy. This is a republic, a democratic republic. We should all be equivalent. I understand that there's no society on earth where everybody is equal, but equivalent. And as far as the
Pensions.
I mean, I feel it's the same way. That being guaranteed for the rest of your life, the money that you earned for having worked 5 years, to me is a form of corruption. I don't think that anybody should be guaranteed anything forever that they haven't worked for. And I want to give you one example of a lie that is going around that my opponent has been promulgating. There's a budget that's proposed by Representative Ryan to help decide how our government's going to function in the next term. One of the provisions of the Ryan budget is that we as a country could save $2 billion over the next 10 years if we just combined the benefits, the pension benefits, the retirement of rail workers with Social Security. Great idea, right? Save $2 billion. One small problem with that plan. We all don't pay into that. Rail workers and their employers pay for that. Combining it with Social Security wouldn't save us a nickel. It would hurt rail workers. Who do you think wants to hurt unionized rail workers? I just don't think these things are right. I think we need to get over the myth that organized labor is evil, whether it's public or private employees. We have so many benefits in this country. All of us have so many benefits in this country today because our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents made great sacrifices. And I'm speaking as a member of a labor union, which doesn't do much for me here. I'm not represented in this district, but I belong to SAG-AFTRA. And we have things like the 8-hour workday. We have things like vacation time. We have safe workplaces. None of these things would have existed. They're all codified today, but they're all because we got together and said we want to support each other's right to negotiate collectively. And there's an evil proposition that's going to be on the state ballot in November that I hope you all vote against. Prop 32 would virtually destroy labor unions. And I think it is one of the worst suggestions that is ever proposed for our state ballot. I think we need to get past this.
I don't represent any particular group.
Margie Bell.
Margie Bell. Republicans have the reputation, deserved or not, I think probably pretty much deserved, of being the pro-business party. Now, how would you combat that image, or would you, or?
I hasten to remind you that I'm not a Republican and not a Democrat. In the interest of full disclosure, I started out in the party of my parents. I was a Democrat. I became a journalist. I just didn't think it was right for me to be publicly identified with one party or the other. And as it turned out, I'm really not a Democrat or a Republican. I really am independent. But I'm also a small business owner. I don't think either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party is especially pro-me. I think both parties have great advantages. Both parties have some disadvantages. My criticism with the parties is not their reputations. It's the hijacking of their organizations by special interests. I don't think there's anything wrong with being pro-labor or pro-business or both. We need both. We need good, strong businesses. We need good, strong workers. But we need parties to represent all of us. There's nothing wrong with any one of you belonging to one party or the other. as long as the party doesn't become more important than the country. I hope you know that in 1958, both houses of Congress passed a bill called the U.S. Government Code of Ethics, and it requires all members of government to put loyalty to country ahead of loyalty to party. How many members of Congress do you think do that?
0.
One more question, and it's not an easy one, but I feel obligated to answer it. This is your first entry into politics.
No, actually, I ran for student body president and won in high school. I'm one for one.
There's candidates that run, and I was kind of shocked when I first found out about candidates that have the same ideals, the same desires that you're expressing here to get into politics, and particularly at the national level. It's one thing when it's local or state, but at the national level, politics is so vicious, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I've talked to politicians who got in with the same ideals and just turned and get back out, because it's not a matter of wanting to change. The system won't allow change. And particularly, these were actually politicians that ran under one party or the other. To go in as independent almost dooms you about trying to accomplish anything, because a lot of people know, if everybody knows, when you get in, you got to decide which side you want to be on, one or the other. And you can try to stay independent, and you may have a desire to stay independent, but my conversations with other politicians say that you don't get anything done as an independent. So you got to decide which way you want to align with. So I'm wondering how, or I'm hoping that you have some knowledge of this craziness that you're trying to get into. And I'm just wondering, how are you planning on dealing with the level of politics that's played at the national level?
And Mr. Morris, I appreciate that question. First of all, I think it's important to know that some people get into politics to do something, and some people get into politics to be something. My opponent has clearly made his choice. Kevin McCarthy is the House Majority Whip. He was the first freshman in the state legislature to be the leader of his party's caucus. He's become important. He has chosen to be someone. I want to do some things. And one of the things I want to do is represent my district. And I don't care which party puts me into which nice office on Capitol Hill. That doesn't matter to me. I'll work in the garage. I've worked in worse places. I also think it's important to know that my opponent, Kevin McCarthy, who's been in Congress for almost 6 years now, has authored one bill since he has been in Congress. One bill which actually became law. And that was a bill to rename the post office in honor of Phillips. I think I can do better than that. I think any of us could do better than that, having 6 years to serve and having all that power. I also think it's important to note that one of the most common complaints I have heard from other constituents is he never calls me back, he never writes back, he doesn't answer, he doesn't listen. I think that's terrible. As a journalist, I would have been fired in a minute if I never called people back. The best stories that I got were from people I didn't know, who would call me up out of the blue and say, I got a great idea for a story. And it turned out to be great.
We got one right there.
Yes, sir.
I'm Aaron Steenberg. I'm a veteran and retired educator, and I run the school board. And one of the candidates who won, about a third second, said, Aaron, the one who's going to win this election are the people. Are those who have the most billboards, those who have the most advertising, and those who have this most prominence. So and he's right. So my question is, what can you do? You can't run Republican or Democrat, but there are a number of interests that we'd like to see Congressman McCarthy out for the number of reasons there are. Is there any way that you could mobilize their interests to give you the billboards, the other kinds of things, the television buys, that will make you a name recognized throughout the 23rd in a way it isn't present? I wish you luck.
Thank you. It's a good question, and of course, money is a concern, and I'm not expecting to have enough to buy billboards from one end of the district to the other. But I have sought endorsements, and I've sought endorsements from a lot of places. from business organizations, from labor organizations, from all kinds of special groups. And I've been lucky so far to get expressions of support from a lot of places, and I hope that they will do some of this work for me, not just in media, but also making phone calls and walking the districts with me or on their own. This is the best advertising, by the way. I don't discount the importance of billboards and other media, but there's nothing that has served me better, both as a learning experience and as a political experience, than talking to individuals. And I hope all of you will, whether you agree with me or not, whether you're planning to vote for me or not, I hope you will talk to others about this election. You know, we had about 25% show up at the polls on the primary election day. I think that's disgraceful. We all need it. If you're not registered to vote, probably most of you are because you're here. But if you're not, please grab one of those registration forms in the back. If you know somebody who's not registered to vote, take a form to them. It's really easy. They fill it out in 5 minutes, nail it in. It's important. We should all do this. And I think word of mouth is going to trump the billboards this time around, especially because there's so much frustration, not just among Democrats or Republicans or independents. Everybody's fed up with Congress. Opponent's one of the leaders of this government gridlock that we have and brought our country to the brink of government to the brink of shutdown. As a result, we now have a lower credit rating. That's the first time in history that ever happened. Again, I don't want to spend most of my time talking about what he didn't do or the bad things he did do. I want to serve. I want to serve everybody. There's been only one name on the ballot for that office. This is going to be the first time in recent history that we all will have an honest choice. And I hope we will exercise that choice.
Thank you, Terry.